Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started. Good evening, folks. This is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I am joined by a member of, what are you a member of? How should we refer to you?
Hi, you can call me Anita.
Anita. So, Nina, you sent me a 22-page document that I've gone through. I've skimmed through it, and I took some notes. And what it purports to be is a theory of we're connecting the dots on how we're going to build this theory that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and their PR team have conspired to erase Justin Baldoni out of Hollywood, out of this movie, out of the whole thing, right out of the industry. Now, you've been working on this for quite some time. How long have you been working on this specific document?
I think about 2 weeks now. It's been about 2 weeks, and it all started as just an idea that I had, and it spiraled into me just digging in, and I posted it on Reddit, just half of my thought, and then it started, like I already posted that I started getting attacked on Reddit, to the point that I didn't have access to my Reddit account, and then I was suspicious.
No, your account got erased. Like, stuff was getting deleted. I remember you were telling me that hey, check out this post, and I was like, hey, the post doesn't exist. Do I have the right link? And then it was just gone. It was weird. It was legitimately weird.
Yes.
But I've read so this is the way that I'm approaching this. I'm approaching this as if I'm an attorney. I have no idea what you're about to say, but you're claiming that you have knowledge or you have a theory that you wanted to present to me to help in my lawsuit against Blake Lively that proves a conspiracy. Now, we kind of already know just from the pleadings what they're going for, and we kind of connect the dots about how that's all breaking down. We know from my position, as I've analyzed the pleadings themselves and what they are arguing, what I have deduced is that there was a point in time where Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni had a certain kind of relationship. Like, it was friendly, it was flirtatious. Lively at times would brag through text messages about how flirtatious she was, how she might make him uncomfortable. So maybe he wouldn't be able to keep up. Famous no teeth text message and all of those things. And then the next thing you know, we have this 17-point list where she's offended by it was really 7 specific things, but she had a 17-point list. And among those were, she was shown a clip of a pregnancy that was not even Baldoni's, it was Heath's, before filming a birthing scene. She didn't appreciate how Justin Baldoni had tabbed a Shakespearean trained actor to be the gynecologist to deliver the baby in a movie scene. There was other stuff where, we kind of went through it and we saw that it was ridiculous. And then we have this juxtaposition. It's like, how do we go from, we're joking about how flirtatious we can be, to having these minor grievances or annoyances at best against a coworker and escalating them to where it's like this big complaint that we have to have a HR conference over and bring the entire production set to talk about how things are inappropriate. And nobody seems to know what in the F anybody's talking about. But Ryan Reynolds seems really impressed about it. And Lively seems really upset about it. And then they persist. And then gradually over time, they proceed to inch by inch detract from what was originally contemplated in the written agreements, even if they weren't signed, to the production of a film that ultimately gets done, but only at the behest of Blake Lively after Wayfarer and the appropriate parties had succumbed to her demands. So we get there and you start, is this on the screen yet? I have it on the screen. Your document where you kind of start and you give us this introduction about, hey, so this was kind of a common scheme or practice that they have, the two of them, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, have engaged in. You start off by talking about there was this article in the LA Times. There was an interview with Ryan Reynolds where he kind of lays the groundwork. Now, I'm not taking credit for any of this because you put this all together yourself. You have links to these articles if people want to check them out for time purposes. I'm kind of just going to run through this. But there was a quote here, and he starts off, so I've done movies that I shouldn't have done because they're going to pay me. And that was, at the time, very appealing and exciting, he admits. When you arrive in Hollywood and you come from where I come from, you think, of course I'm going to do that. And then he goes on to say, after starring in a string of high-profile box office misfires, most notoriously Green Lantern, the would-be DC Comics superhero franchise that cost $200 million to make, but took in only $116 million in domestic ticket sales in 2011. But there was also the body-switching comedy, The Change-Up, budget $52 million, and all these stuff. And then I think this is your writing. This is you right here, correct?
That one is mine.
One of the biggest stories of RR was his passion and dedication for making of Deadpool. We would be fools not to acknowledge his contributions to success. Fast forward to September of 2015. You say Ryan Reynolds is 38. He's in his 8th or 9th Hollywood lifetime. He's been the cult comedy guy from The Van Wilder and the romantic comedy guy from The Proposal, the guy in a CGI suit talking to a tennis ball and a Green Lantern. By the way, I've never seen any of these movies. And so if I'm a little bit lost with those movies, I apologize. And then you say,
this was just like to give how their career trajectory is parallel with Blake. So this is just to draw, and I didn't want to just write it myself. I wanted to directly quote them so that it's not like a speculation of how it went. I was trying to refer to them, to their direct quotes.
I have to pause because my friend Lauren Knighty's in this chat. What's up, Lauren?
Hey, who am I talking to?
Oh, this is, okay, so my name is Omar.
I know who you are.
And so I have been presented with this document from a Redditor. She's put together this 22-page PDF that purports to be evidence where we could kind of connect the dots and see where a conspiracy lies. I have thoughts about it from a legal perspective. And I'll just tell you right off the bat that this 22-page document is not proof of anything. Number one, it's not admissible. A lot of this stuff where this preamble that we're going through is not really stuff that you're going to get in court unless you could get it in for a very specific purpose. And even then it's arguable because you're trying to get in propensity evidence. Like he had a propensity of trying to take over films, which is I think where we're trying to lead up to this. Like this was his common practice. Like starting back in 2015, he had this idea that he's going to take over films and he was going to be this bully, and it's persisted all the way into 2024. If you're trying to prove this in court, unlikely that all of this is going to get in. And so we have to decipher between what is the BS that's out there floating around on the internet and what's actually going to be provable in court. So we have a pretty good theory already by the pleadings and going by the text messages and what this person has done. I don't know if you've given your name or not, so I don't want to just like throw your name out there.
Yeah, Anita is okay. Yeah, you can.
Her name is Anita, Lauren.
Okay, thank you. I was just like, Omar, I mean, who is your guest? Like,
I mean, normally she's asked for a measure of anonymity, and so I'm respecting that because
yeah, I got you now.
When she put this out there, like she got a lot of backlash and there was a lot of people coming for her. Like she had her post from Reddit deleted, and
Why?
I don't know if there were threats or I don't know.
By the way, as we scroll down, there's more like evidence referencing to the actual case. So this is just the backstory. I have started and so on. So this is just the backstory, and I'm going to get into the actual case. If you
100%.
Yeah. And I have highlighted the key things that I think are important to look to.
Yeah, and you want to be on the show if there wasn't involving this case, but I appreciate that you're trying to frame it in this context. And so then the question becomes for the attorneys and for Friedman, really, there's not a chance that Friedman is not aware of these quotes, of these evidence. The narrative is that Reynolds has developed this personality over time, and you kind of give some context about how that is. You continue, and there's this quote, this was an interview I think that he gave. The unspoken part being that you've had to learn that lesson through some not great experiences with directors, right? And he says, yes, there have been some hard-earned experiences with respect to that, but I have to take whatever responsibility I have to take too. I'm not just saying, oh, it was them or they effed this up. I also chose it, There's my face up there the whole time I made those decisions. Are there times when you're happy to headline a movie? Yeah, Deadpool, I love doing that. That's sort of a dream come true. We're continuing. So what do you think when you see young, bright, up-and-coming actors in Hollywood steered relentlessly into these franchises? A lot of them are incredible artists, and they need to have a franchise in order to pursue a lot of the other interests that they may have. It works as a bit of a conduit to the material that they want to be pursuing when they're not shooting the big franchise. You have some commentary about how Ryan Reynolds is a smart businessman, an entrepreneur, and then we get into more of this stuff with Blake Lively's career. Just like Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively has also taken part in mediocre movies. She needed to rebrand herself. She's launched 2 super successful beverage brands while taking a break from acting. There's some links to those down here. She says in an article, Blake Lively is another celebrity who founded their own line of sparkling non-alcoholic cocktails. So what was the reason that you wanted us to be drawn attention to this specifically?
Because it's also like Ryan Reynolds. I think one of the first brands that he was supporting was Aviation Gin, and Blake Lively also went exactly in his steps. So it draws quite like parallel as how they're going. It's just like the sequence is altered because she was a mother and she was raising the kids. It's just showing how there's a similarity between, like, I wouldn't say even similarity, it's parallel to how they're functioning in the industry.
Got it. Hey, Lauren?
Yeah.
Do you have any crazy conspiracy theories about how the actual conspiracy is taking hold with this Ryan Reynolds stuff? You have to have formed some opinions, being like at the forefront of getting all of the documents that have been filed in this case and going through them all word for word on your live stream. And by the way, I saw you on Podcorn Planet today.
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes, I did. Yeah. No problem. Yeah, it was a good time. I was kind of last second. I didn't realize it was going to happen. He sent me a message on Twitter because I was in his chat. And I was like, oh, sweet. So yeah. That was
By the way, what's up with your avatar?
That's me.
But why do you have like bunny ears or whatever? On a
okay, so can you rephrase the question for me? I got a little lost there. I'm sorry.
Oh, do you? Well, I mean, first of all, I know that you're not an attorney.
Nah.
But have you gotten into any of these theories or ideas of how the conspiracy might have taken hold? With respect to Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and how they've tried to erase Justin Baldoni, because I think that my theory has been geared towards, I'm not so sure that they started with that theory. I've kind of subscribed to this idea that there was a point in time where Lively felt rejected by Justin because she couldn't get him to come off of his Baha'i faith and to stop feeling so married, and he wouldn't flirt back with her, and she got real pissed off about it. And then Ryan Reynolds caught wind of it, or felt the winds of jealousy tickle his nether regions, and he decided to feel a certain way about it. And then he came after Baldoni a certain way, and then it led to them trying to erase him off of the set, which led to them ultimately trying to erase him from Hollywood with everything else that they did. And look, all of that, you still have to prove that in evidence. There's been some wild allegations. There were some wild text messages that, if they were true, that I read in the opposition to Reynolds' motion to dismiss. Like, if he really said that, that's really damning for defamation. But how do you tie that into conspiracy? Because look, this is the legal standard. You have to prove what the plan was. It can't just be that Ryan Reynolds was jealous. It can't just be that they wanted to get rid of him for financial gain for the movie. There has to be a distinct plan. You have to be able to box it in to, this is what the plan was. This is who participated in the plan. They knew that they were participating in this plan, and this is exactly what they did to further that plan, which is a really hard standard to prove.
Yeah.
So what we have here is a lot of theories and a lot of allegations. And one of my points in bringing this up and even making this video, instead of going through the opposition to Jed Wallace's 12b6, because I haven't had time to read it yet,
Oh, yeah.
was just to illustrate how difficult it is to prove a conspiracy at trial.
Yeah.
So you guys have all of this knowledge, and you guys have all these theories, and you guys know all of these things, but not all of this is coming into the trial. So all of this preamble about his biography and Lively's biography, 90% of that is not going to be relevant enough to get into trial. So how are we connecting this to a conspiracy? So I'm sorry, Anita, if I'm asking you questions about like why certain things are in here, what I'm directly asking you is, what is the relevance to the conspiracy?
It just builds the foundation, but without the foundation, the further where I go to how like everything happens, is starting from pre-production to post-production. I list there like as per their timeline. I've tried. One of the things that I was getting frustrated with the online stuff was like everybody was just like going with the conspiracy ideas, what could have happened. So I tried to stick to the lawsuits, like what they have filed and what's in there, and not the narrative that was given by the lawyers, but text messages. That's what I was trying to stick to. So whatever you will see. So that's what I tried to have the approach. So before I did that, I was just trying to give a background as to how I end up going into those details, which you will see in the next pages.
Right. And 100%. I was impressed because that's exactly what you did. You kind of put the text messages in chronological order. They're not really in chronological order in the pleading, so you went out of your way to kind of do that.
It took me 2 weeks.
I
want to leave this case behind. I will be honest, I want to leave this case behind because I just consumed so much of my life because I want to know. And that's what I was trying to do. And I finally came up with a theory that made sense to me. It doesn't mean maybe it will make sense to others, but it made sense to me. And,
well, if it makes sense to you, you're a juror, and the jury is going to be in charge of.
I even explain further down. I was like, I was on Blake's side in the beginning, but after Exhibit A came out, immediately I was like, there's no way. But then there were still some questions. I was like, Jed Wallace didn't make sense. Some things didn't make sense. So there were still like lingering questions. And as there were more filings, I just had like little light bulb moments. And then I am putting everything together here as to why everything happened.
All right. So I'm going to skip ahead to November 24th of 2019. And the reason why I'm doing that, because a lot of the stuff from back then is unlikely to be admitted in trial.
I think you can actually like even scroll down to, I would say, how Blake Lively sees his power. You can just scroll down to that. And even those are in Exhibit A are all in their filings. You don't necessarily have to open Exhibit A. I've just quoted there. Yeah. Right. The most interesting part is how did we end up here, right? So how are we in this lawsuit? How did we end up here? And that goes further down, which is unpacking like you will see. I
mean, it's a lot to get to that point, but
so you can just just do as you like. As I said, just see as you fit.
All right, I'm going to I lost my place. Let's work through this here. Let's work through what you've compiled. So you have this quote here from, is this the one from, I lost the one that I was looking at. That's not what I wanted. Oh, here we go. All right, so from 2019, you have this quote, I feel like I've lived under a rock until they came to me with this movie. So now, when the whole world is open to you, for a name to cut through like that, through a younger generation, really made me perk up, acknowledging the sheer volume of fan following the books. Have BL's commentary when asked about her first impression of the book, or how she got the role, portrays her mindset from the get-go as one of the first things she noticed was not the topic of the book, but rather the potential of a successful franchise. That is the book that all my friends are obsessed with. that everything knows that the potential of a successful franchise. And she dropped this. Was this back in 2019? Oh, I'm getting confused with this.
That's outside of the quotes. That's my like if and in the video, that's why I've linked the video and put the timestamp. That's
Gotcha.
She describes, and this ties back to how they had this mindset with Ryan Reynolds that they need a franchise.
How long did it take you to do all this?
2 weeks. I mean,
it's very thorough. It's impressive. I didn't know if it was like a long-term project.
This was my personal project.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious.
Could you guys hear that?
What?
Are you guys able to hear that audio, or do I got to share it? I think I got to share it.
Oh no, I can't hear it.
Okay, let me do this.
My favorite is when you're doing that and you're by yourself, so you have no idea that nobody can hear, and you're just talking to yourself.
I've done that more than once. Anyway, this is the quote that she says. Blake Lively, it ends with this interview. This is from 7 months ago.
They came to me with this movie, but the person that I was in the car with, Eden, when the gentleman I work with, Warren, called me and said, "Hey, they're interested in you playing this character. Do you know Colleen Hoover and her books?" And Eden shrieked. She's 25 years old, and I thought, "Oh, that's so interesting that a 25-year-old who has access to every bit of information possible, everything you get on social media apps, all the streaming, all the optionality." Here's this name of this writer that cut through. That was interesting to me because in older generations, everybody was listening to the same radio shows, watching the same 30 channels. So now when the whole world is open to you, for a name to cut through like that to a younger generation really made me perk up. And then when he said the name of the book, she's like shrieked, and I was like, "Are you a fan of this book?" She's like, "I've read her other books. I don't know that book, but that is the book that all of my friends are obsessed with. Everyone knows that." So she hadn't even read the book, but she shrieked when she heard the name. And then I ended up going to a local bookstore like an hour later in this tiny town, and the windows were just covered in Colleen Hoover, Colleen Hoover, Colleen Hoover, Colleen Hoover. I thought, okay, I feel like the universe is trying to tell me something. So I read the script that night, and I just so fell in love with Lily, and I just wanted to tell her story so much. But my favorite set,
that's actually really, really important. The franchise part of it. So this is going to be like an ongoing enterprise for her. And Justin Baldoni was positioned to be in control of it.
Yes, and I think exactly like here, I think at that point, but this is like me speculating, right? So in the document, I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to stray away, but just as a person.
Well, we got to speculate a little bit, right?
They didn't know how powerful, how much authorship, not to quote her, but he had over the whole franchise. They didn't know that they had all the rights. And I think one of the first filings, Brian Friedman said that, when Justin Baldoni met Blake, she said that, you have too much power. It was one of the filings. I couldn't find it because there's so many documents, and it just goes to that she had already highlighted that from the first meeting.
So we at the very least, we have a motive for the conspiracy. They've been arguing we can't have extorted anybody. We couldn't have conspired. What is the plan? They haven't told anybody what the plan is. At the very least, they have a motive. If they had designs on turning this film into a franchise, and it would make sense that they're trying to push Baldoni out of it, because that's everything they did from about December of 23 leading up to the release of the film was designed to diminish Baldoni's role little by little, to the point where it was like, you know what, just give up your PGA credit. You know what, why don't you just sign this apology letter, or else the gloves are going to come off, as Friedman had said, or quoted in his opposition. So you have the framework for a conspiracy. We just need to figure out how they pulled it off. Now, the text messages and stuff are more compelling. There's this article that you referenced in November of 24th of 2019, Tim Miller talking about why he left Deadpool. Now, this is what he said. this was interesting because this speaks to a pattern. It became clear that Ryan wanted to be in control of the franchise. You can work that way as a director quite successfully, but I can't. I don't mind having a debate, but if I can't win, I don't want to play. And I don't think you can negotiate every creative decision. There's too many to make. So Ryan's the face of the franchise. He was the most important component of that by far. So if he decides he wants to control it, then he's going to control it. Again, that's not really evidence of anything other than others have similar experiences with Ryan Reynolds. It's not evidence of a conspiracy. It's evidence that he might be a dick. It might be evidence that he's difficult to work with.
He might be a dick.
I might be a dick sometimes.
You're both dicks.
So, BL did everything she could to recreate what Ryan Reynolds achieved with Tim Miller, getting Baldoni to step away willingly or with a knife to his throat.
Yeah, I get a bit sassy somewhere. I was just getting pissed off at some time, so I needed to.
Okay. It's like, I
sprinkle
don't remember a
sass.
knife. That's
And it was just like my interpretation of what she actually wanted to do, maybe.
yeah. But much to her disappointment, he didn't bow down to the final move in the execution of her in Ryan Reynolds' malicious plan. And for that, we owe a huge thanks to Stephanie Jones, who has single-handedly buried any and everyone who previously held JB and the Wayfarer team hostage. Without her, BL would quietly take over the movie behind closed doors instead of us. So now let's get into some of this meat. Some of the meat. Almost immediately, Lively begins inserting herself into the production process. So this is, I guess, the process.
Yes, basically I've taken like step by step how she inches towards getting basically the movie from him, and this is where how she gains power in the
Would
movie.
you say that it was her plan before she ever stepped foot on the set to take over this movie?
Yes, I think it was her plan. She wanted the movie, but I don't think they knew how to yet, and I think that's why they are nice to Justin in the beginning, just trying to get us good graces, and then you know they do what they do.
Testing the waters, you say. They're probably studying JB in Wayfarer Studios. They're well aware of his podcast and his books and this image of a nice guy. I mean, I don't know how aware they were of that. I honestly don't know, but they knew enough about it to make fun of him, and they continue to like poke at him even in the pleadings about his faith and about his podcasts and about his vulnerabilities and this really gross testimony.
And that just goes back to, you will see as we go, like they have nothing of evidential value to say what Justin did. They just make fun of him. That's what they can do. And yeah.
So look, I'm probably going to take a lot of criticism because like, oh, your team your team Ryan Reynolds, no, your team Justin Baldoni. It's like, look, I'm not team anybody, man. I'm trying to put together. I am taking somebody's theory, I'm analyzing it, I'm breaking it down for its merit. I already have a similar theory. My theory doesn't revolve around Lively planning from step one to take this over. It was at some point things flipped. That's been my theory. This one is purporting, Anita is purporting that no. They had on this movie a long time ago.
I would argue with that based on Blake's previous history of who she has dated. I don't think she would ever look at Justin, in the sense that because he was not as rich as the people she hung out with, based on her personality, how stuck up she is, I don't think she's ever dated somebody who was, quote, below her. And that's how definitely she looked at them and treated them. But that's my
Lauren, what do you think, man? What do you think about Anita's theory versus my theory?
Honestly, I'm a little lost because we're talking about a lot of things here. So, what are we talking about exactly? Like,
do you think? Okay, so the theory is at some point Blake Lively decided that she wanted to try to take over the film.
Okay,
that's well documented in the pleadings.
I don't think that she thought she would ever have to. Is my thing. I think that they picked someone, like, she was cool doing it because she thought like he's beneath her and that she thought she was just going to get her way like she's used to getting and like her husband's used to getting, and that's why things went the way they did. It went sour once they realized they weren't going to get exactly what they wanted. He didn't behave, I guess, exactly the way she wanted him to. Not that he did anything wrong, but he's just a very different person than her. And then that's when things flipped after the break, I guess. So
Okay.
So I don't think that I don't know if she went into it or not wanting to take over the film. I think that she just thought she already had it.
Well, this is some of the stuff. I guess these are some of the clues that Anita has derived from the pleadings. This is from Exhibit A. Lively
Yes.
immediately begins inserting herself into the production process, way beyond the scope of what they had discussed contractually. The producer says, "Hey, you already spent like $615,000," and they were still at the initial spend phase. I think that was like the wardrobe stuff, wasn't it?
Yes. And yeah.
Baldoni begins writing and sending script revisions to Lively, all the while also building rapport with his co-star and lead actress. Lively responds, "You're safe here." She's drawing him in to her web. But she had ulterior motives. Baldoni and Lively text about script changes and enhancing dialogue for the role of Lily Bloom's mother, Jenny Bloom. There's this text message exchange between JB and BL. Shows that after not being met with wide open arms and praise from the director of the movie as much as she was expecting, Blake Lively starts playing her power hands by ambushing him in her apartment with her dragons. And then you, also known as two of the most powerful names in the industry, there's these text messages. "Please know, I trust that on the day you've got me, and I hope that you trust that I've got you if you want it. If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi." Everybody knows this text message. She's the Khaleesi.
Yeah.
"I happen to have a few dragons, for better or worse, but usually for better. By the way, Taylor Swift is not her dragon."
Mhm.
Taylor Swift rejects that theory wholeheartedly. "Because my dragons also protect those I fight for." So we really all benefit from the gorgeous Monsters Manual too. April 20th, about a week later, production crew voices concerns regarding Blake Lively's undue influence over the film. On the 25th, Baldoni is summoned by Lively to her penthouse and greeted by Reynolds, where he was confronted about asking her about her weight. He swore at Justin, accused him of fat shaming his wife. "How dare you effing ask about my wife's weight? What's wrong with you?" When he had just gotten over like a back surgery or something.
Yeah, this is, by the way, if you go in chronological order, you can actually see how her exertion of power escalates from one to another. It's like you can see it escalates from one step to another.
Yeah.
If you go.
May 1st, producers raised concerns regarding Lively's script changes with much higher alarm. Even Jamie Heath, the director of Wayfair Studios, didn't know what could have been done at that point. There's more stuff. Now, you title this production phase 1, also known as the whiny Blake phase, where she starts complaining about every little thing. May 29th, Wayfair was made aware that Lively had placed a call to the film's Sony executive to share a few grievances. There's the sexy comments. Heath showed the birth video. Lively shares grievances about the first AD. What's AD?
I think
the first
it's
AD.
assistant director who was
Suggested
with her.
she be replaced, who was also a woman shortly thereafter. Heath informs first AD that she's going to be replaced. Justin and Jamie exchange text about how they don't want to let her go, but they concede the situation they're in. What are you going to do? I mean, she wants to do it. We got to continue. She's going to dip if we don't. We can't afford to get somebody else at this point. We're going to have to finish. Kind of where they were at that point. On June 13th, Lively asked to the dailies via text message. JB discusses the request with the production team. JB promises or compromises by sending a curated 5-hour playlist. Continuing on the 14th and 15th, they refused to return to set despite having a scheduled shooting. On the 19th, Lively still tries to insert power by asking who else has access to inquire information regarding directorial approach. So this is just kind of what we're all familiar with about how she's continuously trying to inch or increase inch by inch her influence over the film. And then we get to October 17th, coming face to face with another firm stands against her request to view the assembly cuts. Lively directs her agent to send an email mildly demanding that JB fly out to the show to show her the full assembly cut that week. They had like this whole way that they were going to go about the editing process. She decided that she wanted to have her own editing process. And then she demands like her version of the film be shown. All of those things. We're familiar with that. Phase 2, the demanding Blake phase. So November 8th, Heath sends Lively's agent the new shooting schedule. November 9th, Lively's lawyer sends over an email containing the 17-point list of non-negotiables. You say, now this is the most important event in the sequence of events. Instead of attaching the 17-point demand, I want to highlight these two critical points in excerpt from her lawyer, Lindsay Strasberg. Upon closer look, the 17-point demand gives more creative control over the movie than addressing her alleged SH claims and concerns regarding the production. In other words, it was extortion. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Okay.
There were 17 points. Only 4 of them had like any kind of insinuation of sexual harassment. Oops, sorry, I cannot say that SH.
Oh, I don't give a shit if you say that.
I've ruined Omar's streams. You're fine.
So,
I'm
it already is
familiar
what it
with
is.
Lauren's streams. I love it. So I wasn't sure if it was allowed here.
have you been on Lauren Strains before?
Yeah, she's the first one to report on all filings. It's amazing. And she's sleepless. And
Well,
we
Lauren
appreciate
always-
it, Lauren. Thank you.
Oh,
She
thank
usually
you.
comes in and sabotages my streams,
That's
and then
true.
like drops the C word and stuff on my.
Yeah, actually, that's why I asked who because the names aren't showing on your screen, so I didn't know who your guest was when I came on. That's why I asked, because I didn't want to just come out and start swearing like that.
What's
if it was
that
like
about?
your mother
I
or
am-
something, you know what I mean? Like,
I am just a random Redditor who
Okay.
was attacked
Yeah.
by Nick Shapiro, probably,
Oh,
because
no.
of this theory. And then I was like, oh my God, I need to ask. And then Omar was kind enough to take a look, and then he said that he would review it. And here we are.
Yeah,
okay.
we're doing this. It's like, I will read your. At first, it was like a 16-page thing. No, first it was like, hey, check out these 2 Reddit posts. Oh, wait, they're deleted. And then you sent me a 16-page document. I was like, hey, this is pretty well put together. And then it turned into a 22-page thing that I just got today. And so you added to the thing that I'd already read. And so, hey, is that Lauren on camera? Check you out.
Yeah.
Just over there chilling, man. Like,
Yeah,
you're just
I'm
like
gonna turn
all the
camera
way
off in
back.
a second. I just wanted to check it real quick.
That couch is usually in the background.
What?
Is that the couch that's always in the background with like the guitar on
No,
it?
dude, that's a futon upstairs. I'm downstairs.
Oh, well, excuse me.
I'm on my laptop right now.
Oh. Well, let me continue with this. So
Okay.
this link is just the 17-point list. That's literally what it is. BL may have a representative of her choosing present with her on the set for the remainder of the rehearsal and shooting days, including while on a closed set. So in comes Ryan, exhibiting her power, reminding Wayfair who runs the show, reminding everyone on set not to poke her dragon. Anita, I feel like you wrote that on purpose.
I was getting a little bit sassy and pissed off, not gonna lie.
Based on this show.
I spent 2 weeks reviewing her what's a complaint. So
I'm refraining from using my soundboard right now.
Oh, not the soundboard. Oh,
I feel like I should.
that's worse
I
than the
remember
C
that
word.
girl. She was a hoe. For show.
I had to. I just, I had to at some point. So based on this alone, Ryan Reynolds stops playing the role of her husband and takes on being her representative. And now he's just in all of the negotiations. So there shall be no retaliation of any kind against BL for raising concerns about the conduct described in this letter or for those requirements. Any changes in attitude, sarcasm, marginalization, or other negative behavior, either on set or otherwise, including during publicity and promotional work as a result of these requests, is retaliatory and unacceptable, will be met with immediate action. Cue the letter. Since the movie would be going to post-production soon, this is where they will be needing leverage. And you say, very sus. I love that word, sus. BL is well aware that the studio has already spent more than half of their budget on the movie. I guess that's key. They're already so invested in the film. They can't really. This is where a lot of the breach of contract stuff comes into play. I know that they didn't sign agreements, but they've already invested a substantial amount of money based on promises made and them actually abiding by some of the terms of the contract. They can't just like fire Blake Lively at this point without jeopardizing the entire project. So they have the entire production studio in their bag. It's not just Baldoni at this point. It's all of them. It's all of the Wayfair parties.
And exactly before she left to London to be, well, during the strike, she didn't mention any of these things. And then after they refused to give her the assembly cut 3 times, and, you know, she sends this because she realized that she will not be getting access to the dailies or any kind of cut.
So the way that this is going to be presented at trial is they're going to have to bring in their accountants, and they're going to be, look, what was the planned expenditures on the film? It's like, oh, we had a budget of like 150 million. All right. By the time, I mean, I don't know what a budget was, whatever it was, 300 million. It's not that much. 50 million. Yeah. Let's just say it's 50 million, 25 million. All right. We had a budget of 25 million. By the time we got to the final edits of the film, when Lively was threatening to not cooperate with advertising for the film, how much of that budget had you spent? Oh, we were well over budget.
That would have been a blessing if she hadn't participated in advertising for the film. But,
well, no, because I mean, I don't know,
2020.
there's a lot of things that they should have done with respect to her. I felt like there was better actresses they could have got for that part. You know,
oh yeah, definitely.
More cooperative actresses that didn't have designs to turn this into a franchise and steal it from Justin.
Mm-hmm.
So my only point in bringing that up is you can't just throw this. This is all closing argument. Closing argument is not evidence. So we got to prove through evidence what the grand scheme was. And so we can see that but even then, her argument's going to be that, look, I made suggestions. They went along with my suggestions. The fact that they're over budget has nothing to do with me. They're the experts. They're the ones in charge of the money. They agreed to these to these changes. And so how was that a part of the extortion when we've been going back and forth like this for months? To me, that's not evidence of a conspiracy.
Okay, I would like to ask as a lawyer, what would you say if she demands it and Sony tries to play the middleman? And what happens then? For instance, she brought in her own composer, she brought in her own editorial team.
Yeah.
So those are, and she demanded on Wayfair. She basically
the argument is easy.
She wouldn't promote. She said that she wouldn't promote the movie if they didn't. Yeah. Isn't that extortion?
You can argue that it is, but what she's going to say is that it wasn't extortion. I had already substantially performed under the contracts. Throughout the film, this is her argument. It's going to be, I had already performed substantially throughout the entirety of the contract. I filmed the effing movie. They had something to edit. They had something to advertise. At that point, my involvement with the film was voluntary because I had already fulfilled the agreements. I had creative concerns. I brought them to their attention. They could have shot me down, but instead they conceded. And they did that for like a year leading up to the filming of the movie, to the final marketing of the film. And so how could you claim it's extortion when we're supposed to be coworkers, throwing around creative ideas, hearing each other out and saying, yeah, that works, or no, that doesn't work? That's not extortion. That's called working in Hollywood. I can't help it if they felt butthurt because they like my ideas better and they sexually harassed me for a year. And now I'm calling them out on their shit. And now they want to call me an extortionist. I'm the victim. That's what she's going to say. And you guys are going to, oh my God, you're going to hate this lady so bad. Now, the obvious defense to that is, listen, lady, we were well over budget with this. We had so much money invested into this. By the time we started, we kept on making these concessions because if we didn't, it would mean financial ruin for Wayfair Studios, for all of the people that were involved in the making of this movie. Therefore, we agreed to these concessions through undue influence under duress, which is extortion.
Yes, they have a letter about that, by the way, which I will get to, where Jamie sends an email to their lawyer saying that they gave her the PGA mark under
duress
because they were, yeah. And another thing, I do have a question. So November 9th, it was right after the SAG-AFTRA strike, which is kind of the whole purpose of SAG-AFTRA is to help the employees, right?
Yeah.
With these claims.
Right.
The question would be that how come she didn't use that? If her purpose was to actually provide protection, why not use the SAG-AFTRA for that purpose instead of writing a letter when the SAG-AFTRA strike ends, sends it on the first day it ends, And in her demand list, it's not about the protection, it's about creative cuts and stuff.
Well, that's
Like,
one of the questions you would ask. But before you even ask that question, is like, hey, you had an intimacy coordinator. Why'd you waive her? Why'd you waive her off? If you were so, if you felt so threatened by the inappropriateness of Justin Baldoni's behavior, why did you tell the intimacy coordinator to bug her off?
Would they be able to bring in the fact that was it with Sony, or was that Ryan Reynolds had some kind of deal coming up? The clue, was that Sony or Disney?
I don't know. Do you know who that is, Lauren? You know what she's talking about?
I mean, when reading up, they said that they were gonna close on some kind of deal.
I can't remember.
I don't remember what they were talking about.
It could be that Sony was also like pressuring Wayfair as an investor and distributor of the film.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if they have future projects,
to concede to Lively's demands because she was the wife.
Yeah, so they had a lot invested. It makes a lot of sense. If they had a lot of money invested, that they were making these concessions because they had future endeavors that they wanted to do. But the point is, and if you now connecting your theory is that they from the very get-go had designs on taking this entire movie over and turning it into a franchise. They'd always contemplated that. And little by little, they inch by inch moved Baldoni out of the way to the point where they're straight up breaching contract and extorting the guy. And then they have these weird allegations of SH that they've stretched beyond being stretched to try to threaten him because of his image into conceding to her. I mean, that's the motive. What you have to prove now is the plan. And what the plan is, it's hard to well, here's the problem that you're going to have with conspiracy. You're going to have to find, and I know that you have stuff in the text messages like down farther below, but you're going to have to tie in the communications to do these things. Because if you don't have communications like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. In other words, it's one thing to like speculate that this is what they were trying to do when she's just going to go argue, look, they could have just told me no, and they kept on saying yes. How is that my fault? But if you have text messages where it's like she's going back and forth between herself and Reynolds, it's like, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to butter him up. I'm going to pretend to be his friend. And then at some point, I'm going to flip. I'm going to get him used to conceding to my demands. I'm going to start slow. I'm going to start with these wardrobe demands. Then I'm going to change the location of photo shoots. Then I'm going to change the location of video shoots. Then I'm going to change the terms of the contract. Then I'm going to change the terms of the intimacy coordinators. Then we're going to change the terms of the nudity writers. And then we're going to change the terms of how we're going to edit the film, how we're going to market the film. And it's going to keep on escalating, but we're going to get him used to conceding with all of these little things. So at the very end, now he's conceding the big things because he just can't stop saying yes to me. And then if he ever pushes back on any of that, I'm just going to make myself a victim. I'm going to say I was harassed. Now, if you find any of that in writing, now you got grounds for a conspiracy.
But that's why discovery is important, right? And that's why it's important to go there. But it's important to pass the hurdle of the motion to dismiss.
So my only point in even going on that rant is just that's what makes conspiracy so hard. Like you can point to all the dots and say that, look, I can see where there might have been a plan, but you have to have evidence of the plan, evidence of the planning of it and execution of it. Because remember what it is. You have to identify the plan. You have to identify the players. You have to demonstrate for the judge or for the jury in this case, how each one of the players acted in furtherance of the plan.
Okay, I have a question. Nice police satire, we get it, right? So, and Ryan Reynolds and Blake, they love to leave Easter eggs, and even they have Instagram posts about how they eat, and where it's him. They don't deny it at this point, from what I understood, and there they basically identify him and label him as fake immediately, and then in the end, in the battle scene, they shoot him like Lady Poole shoots him with 17 shots.
Mm-hmm.
She fires 17 shots. Could
Symbolic
it be shown
of the
as pattern of?
letter.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna say that's a
Like
So
a plan, kind of, if they have many little things that kind of make a big picture as opposed to one concrete message.
the standard is under 403. Whether or not it's relevant for one. You could argue that it's relevant. And then the other test is whether or not its probative value outweighs its prejudicial effect on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And I would think that a speculation that this random shooting scene in this is it Deadpool? I've never seen the movie. Deadpool, is that what it's called? The movie is Deadpool? Or not Deadpool. What's the movie called? What's that movie called?
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Wolverine, or whatever it was. Whatever scene that was. They had a movie scene where there were 17 shots. And you have Brian Friedman trying to argue that was somehow symbolic of the 17 point letter that was shared in HR. Give me an effing break. They're going to argue that, coincidence. There's no proof alleging just because there were 17 shots doesn't mean that 17. Hey, there's a lot of number 17s out there. It could have been number 17 for Kenny Stabler. It could have been number 17 for Dante Culpepper. Maybe that was his favorite quarterback growing up. Maybe it was 17 for 17 championships with the Boston Celtics, and that's his favorite team. There's a lot of 17s that could have been in there. Why does it got to be because of Lively's 17-point letter? And then the ridiculousness of that is going to come through, and the judge is going to say, yeah, I don't think we're going to let that in. Try again. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Would it be important if the timing when they put it into the script, because they had commented that those were improvised in January after the 17-point was introduced to Wayfair?
Timing, yeah, sure. I mean, timing is evidence that it wasn't coincidental, that it might have been purposeful, but there's not enough. It's just such an arbitrary thing. It's an interesting thing to argue about on Reddit. But bring that to a federal courthouse and try to introduce that as evidence of a conspiracy or an Easter egg, acknowledging a conspiracy.
I don't live at the courthouse, Omar. I live on Reddit. So maybe suck it.
Well, if you had anything to suck, that's gross. Lauren?
Yeah, that was pretty weird.
I don't know you well, so I'm going to mute my microphone. Let's move on.
Always getting me into trouble, man. Ricardo with the 2 says, win or lose, I'd never hired BL or RR ever again. Again, ever. Agreed. I've heard that they are taking real hits in Hollywood over all of this. They're losing subscribers to their Instagram. They're facing severe backlash in Hollywood. They're not doing very well over all of this. And so let's continue with...
I'm playing a tiny rock guitar instead of a violin.
Some people might be happy even finally them going down a little bit.
Let me... All right, where should I go? Should we go with the post-production stuff? Or where do you want to take us, Anita?
I think you can go to the part where page is that.
This is page 7.
Where the... This is 9. I think 9. From 9 it gets interesting, I think.
Promotional content. Oh, this stuff?
Yeah, and the PR is interesting, yeah. Just see that there's the letter where Jamie writes to the lawyer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the first sign of extortion. Like, they have a documented extortion where he's saying that they didn't want to do it.
June 26, after many conversation and once again feeling trapped, Baldoni and Heath write a letter of recommendation to the PGA on behalf of Lively and send a copy to Lively to submit to the PGA. He simultaneously wrote a letter to his attorneys deriding the extortion by Lively. And then I remember this. This was like we could barely read this at the time in the complaint. But it says, I'm writing to you regarding a letter that I wrote on behalf of Justin and myself. As you know, we received a request to write a recommendation on behalf of Blake. This was a request that we feel was unreasonable and cold-hearted. The receiver PJ Mark. Essentially, the movie, i.e., It Ends With Us, has been taken unjustly from Justin as a director and essentially from Wayfair's control due to the extortion of Blake. This is from Jamie Heath. directly. Without going into all the details of the events that have transpired over the months, Justin and I ended up agreeing to write the letter due to feeling trapped. She continues to hold a threat over our heads, and every time we try and hold a line, she uses that threat either directly or indirectly to get us to fold. Make no mistake, I am not suggesting that we were literally forced to acquiesce. But given the high profile of the movie, the partnership with Sony, the amount of money invested, and the need to complete the movie, we have written the letter on her behalf, omitting the truth of how and why she was able to contribute in the ways we listed. There is nothing to do with this letter now. It only serves as a way to memorialize why the letter was sent in the first place. Should we ever need to explain it? Thank you, Jamie. And so, yeah, their biggest evidence. I mean, I don't know if they have evidence for a conspiracy yet.
Oh, yes, they do. You'll get there. Or, I mean, maybe legally not, but...
Well, that's what I mean. I mean legally. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable saying they got enough legally yet. I know that there's stars that are aligning that point towards maybe there's probably a conspiracy. I just don't feel comfortable telling my client yet that, we got this. All we got to do is prove these things, show this evidence, and there's no jury that's going to deny that a conspiracy was afoot. Because you have to understand, too, we can't argue in an echo chamber. They're going to have explanations for all of this. They're going to say with respect to this letter, it's like, look, I didn't force him to write that letter. Now, I think there's more evidence that suggests that they did force him to write that letter than not. But they're going to have an opportunity to argue and be heard. And, I think they probably have enough for extortion at this point. Especially if some of those text messages were real. That were attached in the opposition to Reynolds' 12b6 motion.
Yes.
But conspiracy, I'm not prepared yet to say that they have enough. But I'll continue.
I think you can skip to page 12 because this is still production and post-production, and I think this is where things get interesting, the PR, which is why they're in the lawsuit. I think if it was not for the PR wars, they wouldn't be. And if you skip to page 12... Lauren, I think this might interest you because I remember you were laughing at the way the PR teams were talking. And I figured out, because we were saying, how could they have talked about their clients this way? And I found in Stephanie Jones' lawsuit that actually that communication was not between Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel. It was between Stephanie Jones and Jennifer Abel because she redacted her own name, and it was done. On January 13th and 14th.
That bitch is so messy.
Yeah, it was done on January 13th and 14th when they had gotten back to production and when basically Blake had smeared Justin's name within the production, and so So this is the part that was quite interesting.
We're start with this is page 13. 12, you're introducing who all these people are. I think we're familiar. Melissa Nathan, Jennifer Abel, Jed Wallace. And then here we go. Let's review. Is this what you're talking about? Should we start here?
Yeah, and this is just like showing how they presented facts as if it was happening at the same time, but in their screenshot it shows that it's actually 7 months apart.
Okay, so I'll go. So let's review. We first came across this exchange in the lawsuit filed by SJ. It's on page 7 of the complaint. Interesting, important details. This exchange was made by, for time's sake, I'm not going to click on it. I'm just going to take your word for it that these quotes are from this document. This exchange was made between SJ and JA, not JA and MN. Here's why. Since these messages were discovered on JA, who's JA again?
Jennifer
Abel.
Jennifer Abel. On Jennifer Abel's confiscated phone, by the way.
It's pronounced jaw.
Thank you for that, Lauren. From now on.
No problem.
Abel's message. How about that? Abel's messages should appear in blue rather than green. Blue on iMessage indicates the sender, not receiver. See, now I'm going to have to open this. Oh, it's going to take a while to load. No, because then I'm gonna have to find it. Oh, I see what you mean though. Now it's gonna take forever. I have to go through it and find every single one.
This is just like me proving that it was not actually Melissa Nathan as she presented, which kind of shows, because she doesn't redact Melissa Nathan's name from messages when she includes, but she redacts her own name, but shows it as if it was Melissa Nathan. And Melissa Nathan didn't even get into the picture until end of July. And these words, the pompous, well, I think that's what they call him, and Blake was probably disgusted, blah, blah, blah. All of those were from January when they thought, or they believed, the 17 demands probably proposed by her.
So this is what you're talking about. So this is Melissa Nathan. This is Jennifer Abel. And then your point in bringing it up was that messages are sent from J.A. in green, and the other participant's name in the exchange is redacted. Whereas,
are we saying that she's the redacted person?
Yeah, she is, because she's the one. This is in her lawsuit saying that, oh, look, they were talking this way about their client, but she completely redacts her own name, because if it would have been from Melissa and Jennifer Abel, the sender would be Jennifer Abel.
Whereas Melissa Nathan's name is shown in all the other messages, the from is in blue, indicating this was a screenshot from someone's phone where they were communicating with Abel. Nathan wasn't invited to join Baldoni's team until the end of July and was only officially contracted on the 2nd of August of 24. So given the date of the exchange, which would have been January 13th to 14th, and this lawsuit being filed by Jones herself, we can reasonably deduce that this exchange happened between Jones and Abel when they were discussing Baldoni as a client. So what does that prove then?
Oh, this was just like me talking, because there was a lot of like confusion as to how the Justin Baldoni's PR team was talking so nastily about him behind his back, but we were just all so excited going through it. We didn't even check the dates that the messages were sent probably. And then when I was trying to understand the PR things that were happening, this is just something that stood out to me. I was trying to understand.
You're on the right track trying to like go through all of these text messages and make a chronological, basically a transcript of who said what and when and to whom. And that's going to take forever. But that's the kind of thing, that's what's going to be presented at trial. They're going to 100% do this at trial. And so you're 100% on the right track in how you're approaching this. You say it makes sense that J.A. and S.J. would discuss Baldoni in this way, considering that Lively issued the 17-point demand on November 9th, 2023, signed it on November 15th, and was on set starting January 5th. As a woman, seeing her list of demands or hearing rumors about her claims would naturally evoke disgust, leading to a shift in perspective on your clients. Then you say if you scroll down onto the next page, you will see that Jones does not shy away from showing Nathan's name in text messages. Well, let's see. So there's Abel, there's Nathan. Jennifer Abel. There's Melissa Nathan. I mean, I guess there's... So in all these text messages, are you just trying to say that both of their names were... Well, because they're both kind of redacted in different places. And so what would be the point that you're making in terms of...
This is to explain to the people who had been reading about this and were like quite shocked about how they were talking about him. And also, it's also to show that Stephanie Jones lies about it. Actually, if you go to the next page, I say S.J. Baldy lies in her lawsuit, claiming at the same time they were working to protect Baldoni, whereas it was her and Melissa in the previous conversation.
Is the thing on the... No, I'm not sharing it anymore. let me get back to the document.
Yeah.
Okay. SJ boldly lies in her lawsuit, claiming at the same time they were working to protect Baldoni right after referring to text messages from 7 months earlier between her and JA. Is this not perjury, lawyers? Well, I don't know if it's perjury. Did she say that in text? Or did she say that under oath? Did she say that in pleadings? Was it a mistake of date reference?
I mean, in her claim, yeah.
Yeah. It may be perjury if she knew that it was untrue when she said it. If she said it on information and belief and none of their complaints were verified, then she could get away with it. It may be perjury, but doubtful.
Okay. She like quote says at the same time they were working to protect Baldoni, like without but it's okay. This is not the important part. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that they're going to bring up in like a deposition or something, you know?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go so far as to call it perjury just yet until we know more. To support her lie, she includes an actual text message exchange between Nathan and Abel from the 29th of July, where this time she conveniently does not redact Nathan's name. At this point, both Nathan and Abel were in the know of the actual behind-the-scenes behavior of Lively. Okay. This law I agree. When the dots start to finally connect. Now, let's break this whole smear campaign down and try to come to logical and reasonable deductions. And you have a disclaimer. This is something that is completely my theory, which finally answered all of my questions regarding the smear campaign while 100% believing JB. So make no mistake about it. You are firmly onto team Justin Baldoni.
Yes, but I still had questions that I needed answers to.
Right. And you've answered them for yourself.
Yes.
My opinions is you've taken a lot of liberties with the deductions. And that's what you're supposed to do. And it's really up to the lawyers to prove your deductions. And so if there's
would deductions be how to say provable based on the messages? Like you would say that because my deductions are based on the text messages.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But to the extent that the context of the text messages don't leave room for interpretation of what those text messages actually meant, could win or it could be the difference between winning and losing a case, you know? So, you never want to just say that, oh, these text messages definitely prove this. No, because you got to think about how you're going to tear holes into this argument that this is proof positive evidence that they knew what was going on behind the scenes. Now, look, it is compelling. It is compelling. And it tells you kind of where you need a further look. And they're already kind of looking into all that stuff. And Friedman has already alluded to the fact that, look, I got more evidence now. They're in the midst of discovery. They've been going through discovery since December. We're into April. So you got to believe that they've probably obtained requests for admissions. They probably have the entirety of the text message transcripts, or most of them, of most of the parties. They have so much more than we have right now. So you're connecting dots based on what was in the pleadings. And the questions that you're answering require more discovered documents. So really what you've actually done is you've performed the job of a paralegal where you're highlighting that, hey, we got questions about this. We need to look further under this rock. And where you're looking is pretty much where I feel like they're already looking. So you're on the right track with all of these things. And yeah, this is a compelling deduction to make where obviously it really appears that they knew that something was going on behind the scenes. They can't just have been all innocent about all of this stuff that they're trying to say. And so compelling, yes. Is it a smoking gun yet? No.
Is it enough to get me to the discovery?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you don't even have to have a deduction to just ask for things. Like, I don't have to even know that you had any communication with anybody, but I could ask for all your phone records. I want any and all communications that you might have ever had with anybody incorporated with Sony, with Blake Lively, with Ryan Reynolds, with whoever, Sloan, all of them. And then you could go back, for the relevant time period, which in this case would have been whenever they started talking about the film. And so, and once again, you could request that as long as it's relevant to the litigation without having any suspicion that it's going to lead anywhere. What was that noise?
I'm sorry, I was just moving my elbows.
Oh, I thought that was Lauren. It's like, is Lauren doing something? All right.
No.
I didn't say. Well, see, why I was going to make it weird? I feel like Lauren's like tries to purposely
Lauren,
make it
are we
weird.
boring you? Am I boring you?
No, you're not boring me at all. I just had to answer some emails. Sorry, the word escaped me for a second. I think answer some emails real quick. I have to go in 5 minutes.
You're good. I'm going to wrap this up pretty.
But no, you're not boring me. I think that this is really cool. So thank you for sharing it.
Yeah. You say, in short, while I had strong confidence in JB and the Wayfarer Party extortion claim and viewed BL's flimsy SH allegations as more about gaining creative control of the film, there are still areas of ambiguity. Exactly. The evidence and my analysis supported this perspective, yet certain gaps remained. It wasn't entirely clear how a baseless SH allegation had escalated into a lawyer compiling a 168-page exhibit of events, shocking everyone and dramatically shifting public opinion. I recognize that this was less about SH and more about damage control. Yeah, what I think about, Anita, what I think about this lawsuit, when they start retelling this story in law schools, this is going to be a case about how PR is conducted. This is going to be a case study in how this specific case reshaped public relations in the media. It's not going to be a lawsuit about SH. It's just not.
And I don't think it is about SH. I think it's about, as you said, it's damage control.
Yeah. So to tie all the dots together, you do this. You say, I still need to understand the following. What did Jed Wallace actually do? Well, if you believe him, he said, I didn't do shit. I went there, I assessed, I saw what was going on. I felt like Blake Lively was already having a bad time. So I said the best thing to do would be to do nothing. Why am I even here? And of course, we don't know what he actually did. He hasn't been dismissed from the lawsuit yet. We don't know if he's going to be dismissed at all. And they're able to conduct discovery on him right now, which they are actively doing. Why wasn't he included in the lawsuit? That was extremely strange. Usually when somebody is added later to the lawsuit, it's because they didn't know that he was involved and they found something that leads them to believe that he was involved.
But how come his name was mentioned in the CRD but not in the lawsuit? So that's the question. So they knew he was involved. So that was the, it's okay if they don't think he's,
I'll do that.
Party.
So the way that I'll do it is, rather than just throwing everybody into a lawsuit and I have no idea what their involvement was whatsoever, I will sue who I want to sue. And then I'll allege, does 1 through 100 or something. Meaning I have no idea who's involved, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And as you start finding things out, like they acknowledged him in the CRD, they knew he was around.
But they're claiming that they are making this, the lawsuit because they had a smear campaign against her.
Yeah.
And because based on the messages, and that's how they found out he was involved. So it was kind of like as a, public,
That's
so
a big question.
It was a bit sus that he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, it is sus. It is. I could see why you would think that. And maybe it is. But more realistically, they probably just found out some additional information that they didn't have already and included him in. That's usually why it happens. If that's not the case, and it's for something else.
They included him after he filed for defamation.
Which would make it retaliatory, right? And so, which was going to be my point, which is if it wasn't because of some other thing they found out, then they're going to argue that it was retaliatory. And so you're right to question it. Like, why wasn't he involved if he was part of the smear campaign? Why is he only involved after he sued for retaliation? So, or after he sued for defamation, I guess, would be the point. Your next point is why omit? Oh, did I miss something? why go to the New York Times with a private complaint before you file the actual lawsuit? Yeah, I mean, the allegation is that there was like thousands of text messages exchanged between October and December. And then they finally publish that, well, she files her CRD complaint and then they published it, the story about it.
Oh, just a point, like the CRD complaint was attached to Jed Wallace's lawsuit against Blake Lively. So we saw it for the first time. I think it was 81 or 87 pages. And the lawsuit that Blake filed was completely different. Not completely, maybe. That was a bit an overstatement, but it was very different, her pleading. In her CRD, she concentrates like the 30 points, which she doesn't include in the lawsuit. So these are the questions I had. Why would she do this? So not legally, just to see. These are the things that I had to ask myself, try to find an answer within the filings that I had all
I got you.
submitted.
You say, why omit and cherry pick the full messages on BL site? All attorneys do that. Friedman's going to do the same thing. But Friedman's actually doing something else. He's taking their text messages and then showing the ones that were omitted, that changed the context. That was why his 168-page timeline was so compelling.
Yeah. So, and this is why, like, these questions I have I had for myself as a Justin Baldoni supporter, let's say, to understand the whole case. What were they doing? Why were they in this fight?
Right. You proceed. As the case progressed with the filings in court, I had 3 moments which clarified all of the above questions. He said, Reynolds' motion to dismiss, Wallace's declaration, Lively's 12b6 under 47.1. The whole basis of my theory started with Lively's motion to dismiss. As I listened to law tubers and commentators who approached the case with a more nuanced perspective, I was trying to understand the implications of Civil Code Section 47.1. And I think 47.1 just gives these enormous protections to people making allegations of SH. That means that if you prevail or if you try to assert defamation claims against them and you fail, it subjects you to all of these extra damages, which sucks. Because I think, as it's been pointed out, Justin Baldoni doesn't have all of those protections. It's like if they fail on their claims against him, they're not going to be hit with all of these extra damages as a result of 47.1. And so it's unfair to that regard. I know that California intended well to try to implement 47.1 to protect actual victims of people that have legitimate claims of SH and other more nefarious crimes from being just, oh no, I'm being defamed. This is obviously wrong. This knee-jerk reaction to that's the way that you defend yourself. It was well-intentioned, but in this context, it's a little scary for Justin to proceed with a defamation claim against her because if he loses, it could be catastrophic for him financially.
Yeah, so I mean, we all know that, but the way how Brian Friedman has positioned himself, they seem very confident. I mean, we'll see how it will go, but the following, it will be basically my interpretation of events, how it happens. This is definitely doesn't have any legal standing, but this is just my reasonable deductions, just a heads up.
Well, just, I'm kind of I agree. As 2 lawyers kind of tackle this question, they think that it would be in Baldoni's best interest to dismiss the defamation claims against Lively to get rid of the 47.1 stuff. My thoughts are, I think he's got a strong enough case, given everything that we know and her connections to Ryan Reynolds, to not do those things. I wouldn't dismiss anything against her until we're right up to the 11th hour or something. But I would not I understand why they're afraid of it. I just think they got a strong enough case where they should not be dismissing anything anytime soon. And by the way, Friedman isn't dismissing anything.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He said that he doesn't want to dismiss. He's
not asking them to dismiss, and he ain't dismissing. He wants a day in court. He wants to take it to trial. So you continue here.
I gotta run because I gotta do something before I'll be on later tonight. So
do your thing, Lauren. I'll be on. I might just go and troll on your stream later. You never
That's
know.
fine. All right, Anita, thank you. It was nice to meet you. And
very nice to meet you.
yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.
Lauren Knighty, the Court of
Okay.
Random Opinion. Go check her out and subscribe if you haven't already. My God.
Oh, is that my cue? Okay.
All right. So you said the rest of this is just kind of like your interpretation of 47.1?
Okay, yeah.
Is
No,
that-
not at all. It's just like based on the 47.1, I started like going backwards and trying to understand the case. So you may not be interested maybe here because I'm not sure if it has any legal standing, but
No.
if you took your lawyer hat off, would it make sense to you what I'm writing?
If I took my lawyer hat off, you want me to take off my lawyer hat? Well, that sucks.
just to see, would it make sense? Like if it's a reasonable deduction in that, what would you say?
Well, you say, as often is the case, the answer remains simple. If there's one lesson in life experience has taught me, is that sometimes the most complex questions have the simplest explanations, which we tend to overlook. A closer examination, 47.1 revealed a crucial distinction. California has a 3-year statute of limitations for workplace SH claims, whereas New York's is only 1 year. I don't see how that really. I can't take my lawyer hat off because
No, I will tie it back. You will say from there.
Okay.
I started and going back. So don't take each point one by one. You will see
I will
it.
continue.
Okay.
I started working with that simple information, and this was the moment when everything began to unravel. Given BL's ultimate goal of securing the movie rights, especially considering the undeniable parallels between RR and BL's careers and everything that transpired before, during, and after production, if they had truly uncovered a coordinated smear campaign through subpoenaed text messages, why didn't they confront JB and Wayfair then? Why not demand accountability for the alleged smear campaign and leverage it to pressure JB into selling movie rights? Something BL openly admitted she would be interested in if Colleen got her rights back in an interview. Why not make him release a statement taking the fall for her failing or falling reputation when you had something in your hand which you are apparently using to sue him in court for a smear campaign? There was a clear disconnect between who they had proven to be until they got their hands on Abel's phone and who they became after until the lawsuit. Well, the only logical and simple answer I could come up with is that they couldn't. What did Lively's team uncover in the text messages that led to edit messages and present them to New York Times alleging a smear campaign, but those same messages wouldn't be enough to strong-arm JB and Wayfair Studios into selling them the movie rights? In and around September and early October of 2024, there were a couple of articles where they talked about Reynolds wanting to buy the rights to the movie. Did Baldoni refuse to sell the rights? Also, that it makes sense, because if JB and Wayfair had conceded to each and every demand made by Lively and Reynolds' team in fear of their careers being burned down to the ground to the point that they quietly accepted to be shunned from a movie they financed and produced, why wouldn't they do the same now? Again, it made no sense. Yet again, the answer was simple and right there. There was no smear campaign. Wallace's declaration under oath now made sense and tracked. But then, what did Wallace actually do for the Baldoni and Wayfair team that was enough to hold Lively and Reynolds back from them not talking badly about the Wayfair parties? This is when I immediately remembered the following texts and emails and found in the filings. An email sent from Heath to their lawyers stating that they had given a letter of recommendation for Lively to get PGA accreditation because they felt entrapped. Abel encourages Baldoni in the text messages on August 2nd. The truth is your defense. You have done nothing wrong. And there is over a year's worth of facts and paper trails and people who can go on background as your defense. It's a good thing we all prepare for the worst outcome, because then, if and when it's not as bad, we are over-prepared. Baldoni says, please get the lawyer hired ASAP. It is my understanding Redacted is already all over that, but I'm here to help. And then same day, 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me, and Jamie on the side, just to arm you before this call. 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me, and Jamie on the side, just to arm you before this call. 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me, and Jamie on the side, just to arm you before this call. 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me, and Jamie on the side, just to arm you before this call. 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me, and Jamie on the side, just to arm you before this call. 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something he's texting me, and Jamie on the side, just to arm you before this call. 2nd of August, Abel writes to Melissa Nathan, I'm going to confidently send you something Interestingly, Lively does not disclose what this confidential information was, while she has full access to JA and MN's conversation, but includes this text insinuating there's something nefarious happening behind the scenes. Career killer for them and Wayfarer. No hate to fight it. No, have to fight it. At what point do you fight? It's now. Lawyer up now. Abel, this is so crazy. Nathan, honestly, I've never had anything like it. Can he please hire a lawyer? He needs to. He has one, but he needs a litigator. Get BF, Brian Friedman. He's waiting and will also take on WME. As per Lively's amended complaint, can I start a signal thread with you, me, and Jed, just in case you need him to correct you to Brian because they're very close? Identifies page 20, paragraph 221 identifies Brian to be Mr. Friedman. The above listed 5 texts, both from Lively and Wayfarer filings, further confirmed my suspicion that Baldoni and Wayfarer had started documenting everything to arm themselves to fight Lively and Reynolds had they threatened them again. All of this conspired in August, and by the looks of it, Brian Friedman had joined the Wayfarer parties as their litigator way back in August. And since all of this was in JA's phone, SJ and BL parties all saw the evidence Wayfarer parties had been collecting over months, arming themselves with a civil extortion lawsuits. Hence, Lively and Reynolds not being able to get the rights to the movie. We're not at the final yet. I still needed to understand the link to Wallace and New York Times. 2 weeks you spent on this, huh?
You can go next. You
Yeah.
can scroll. Yeah. I think this is Jed Wallace.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is the part. Yeah.
Is this the hammer where you're going to drop the hammer?
Yeah, I explained Jed Wallace here.
Yeah. So in order to decipher the mystery man, I had to go back to the same formula that helped me understand other ambiguous questions I had yet to understand. Complex questions usually have simple answers, and we tend to overlook them. The answer was yet again so simple. What have JB and Wayfarer been avoiding like the plague? Like Blake Lively publicly smearing their names, let's think logically, after agreeing to BL's 17-point demand and still being unable to finalize her actor's contract with Wayfarer, why would they take the risk of provoking her? If they knew she was capable of launching a full-scale reputational attack based on 10 months of experience with her capabilities to do so, why would they go to such lengths to anger her only to sabotage themselves at the premiere? It defies any reason. This is precisely why I believe there was never a smear campaign to begin with. This realization also reframed my perspective on Wallace's role. His sworn declaration made under penalty of perjury stating that he did not engage in any smear campaign suddenly made perfect sense. Why? Because it was simple. If no smear campaign existed, there was nothing for him to lie about. I rely on facts, not speculation. So I revisited the whole exchange between the PR team and Wayfarer team to see if my theory tracked. For this, please refer to the First Amendment complaint, BL parties, and New York Times. Don't worry, we will not. Okay. As seen on those pages, there's a clear and relentless effort to suppress negative stories about both Baldoni and Lively, which makes sense because he wanted to protect his name while not provoking BL's team. And in one of those messages, Nathan and Abel talk about how they have confused people, and it goes to having different stories where some people talk about the feud, some talk about Lively's marketing campaign, some talk about Baldoni being difficult, while suppressing the 2 articles which were mentioned in Lively's complaint. Article 1, Daily Mail, August 8th. Sloan, Nathan agree that neither would speak to a reporter without first informing the
You can
other.
skip these two. You can skip this. So it's just basically they find out a reporter on December 20th comes and tells them that, it was actually Leslie Sloan who planted the story. And the one from page 6 where they were referring to Melissa Nathan. Melissa Nathan's sister actually killed a bad story by asking a colleague to rename a few words there that shed bad light onto Baldoni. So whereas Blake Lively shows that, oh, they were talking about the 2 articles that were never picked up, but they were actually celebrating those articles not being picked up, because in the full text exchange, the one that Blake Lively omitted, right? Because that's the whole point. They were trying to show that there was a smear campaign, but in full context, because they had the whole text message exchange, they knew there wasn't. Because I read those messages as well, because that's what it says. They have the links to them.
Right. Where do you want me to pick up?
You can go to the which page are you?
I'm on page 20 right now.
Okay, we're almost done then. And I think you can go to the part where they find the phone, and talks about that, what would be their reaction. And that's why I think Jed Wallace wasn't sued, because they saw that there was no smear campaign. That goes back to like me asking, why wasn't he sued? This made sense to me. And then I'm kind of lost. You can go to the last page, actually, and the theory also answered further questions, because, sorry, I'm lost.
This is the last page, right?
This is the one where we discussed. You said that facing the fact that you have found a phone where you thought you were going to find there was a smear campaign, but you realized that your enemies have evidence of extortion and no smear campaign. What do you do?
Well,
right. So this is the part. This is legally. This is what would you do?
You want me to take off my lawyer hat, though, right?
No. This is the part. This is legally what I had asked you this before. This exact question. What would you do, given the fact that this is what you're facing, if you were in Blake Lively's shoes?
I wouldn't file a fucking lawsuit, for one.
Which is what they did.
Yeah, they filed the lawsuit. They tried to make it out to be a sexual harassment lawsuit.
Yes, and they filed it. They filed it in CRD in California with because they had to build the sexual lawsuit, right? Retroactively, and that's why they chose California, in my opinion, because it had 3-year statute, and that's where I had that's what's my deduction. And in the end, also, I go back to how all of this makes sense.
The date of the date that the SH would have took place would have been when? What would have been the dates?
It was May 2023.
So they would have still been within this. No, they wouldn't.
No, because they wouldn't.
They wouldn't have been, because the 1-year thing. Yeah. So 47.1. Yeah. Well, that makes sense for that, for sure. I didn't realize that it was like over a year ago. Gosh, time just flies.
Yeah. And just we can finalize. It's been quite long. Thank you for your time. And just the last point, which says that, and because I think they had to, the reason why they filed this complaint is because they had to, because otherwise they would have been left with Baldoni having like an extortion case against them, and they love to have the upper hand. And that's why Blake Lively's case never made sense, or people have been laughing about it.
So your theory is that you think that they thought that Justin was going to file this extortion lawsuit, conspiracy lawsuit, all along.
Baldoni wasn't going to, and that's the whole point. Also, another thing I highlight there, Blake files on the 20th, right? And she immediately goes to Megan Twohey, who actually is rumored or known to be like quite close connection with Leslie Sloan. Apparently, she was the one who was the secret source to Megan, and basically Megan Twohey owes her career, the MeToo career, to Leslie. And this is where I'm getting speculative, right? And it would make sense why Megan Twohey, as a reporter, didn't contact anybody, because she owed it to her, and this is how they did it. And this is the only way it made sense why nobody was contacted. And given all of this information, because Blake Lively had to position herself as a victim, because she knew that there was a chance of being an extortion lawsuit coming her way. And in this way, with the Me Too movement, she weaponized it the way she was blaming Justin Baldoni had done.
If I'm taking my lawyer hat off,
Yeah.
and I am, if she didn't think that Justin was going to file a lawsuit against her, and if with the evidence being what it is, because she stretched like hell those SH allegations, she doesn't have evidence of a smear campaign. She doesn't have any evidence to prove any of her claims. So why then would she proceed to file first?
Because then she can say that, oh, okay, so this is the part where I think, because I think Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's personality wouldn't allow somebody to have something so big against them, because they're the ones who are used to having something against somebody. I don't think it, and so they love to, redirect the narrative in their favor all the time. And that's exactly and that's why it took them 4 months to do it, because they had to not only come up with a thing, they had to legally base it. They had to go back and do the complaint on the 20th, right? So that's when they did. They asked a right to sue immediately, because CRD would require an investigation. And they didn't sue immediately. They went to Megan Twohey, and then they waited to see if JB would file. And after Justin filed his lawsuit against New York Times, that's when I think they were just like playing, and I think they probably thought that they would be closing the behind closed doors or something, settling behind closed doors, and they didn't expect the Exhibit A. And that's why in all of their lawsuits they're like begging the judge, please to strike Exhibit A, because that's where it shows.
Well, not only that, they got really pissed and wrote letters to the judge like, hey, this is bullshit. Friedman is like the Exhibit A thing. We need to knock it off. We need to keep it out of press. They go crying to the judge about it. They didn't like that at all.
And that's the part. And with this theory in mind, finally it also made sense why none of her famous friends supported, because they knew case was coming their way and they didn't want to be deposed. But this is the only way it makes sense why her friends wouldn't support her. And also it didn't make sense why Sarowitz was included in the case, because the whole point of Blake was that she wanted to place to paint herself as this weak woman against this very strong, powerful person. But everybody knew Baldoni wasn't. But they had included the billionaire in the case, and they made up this, I vowed to spend 100 million to show his wealth as of who, so he's so wealthy, and that part could be dismissed because nobody probably said that. And they had to also sexually link him. And then I think retroactively again, she tried to remember when he was on set.
See, but the problem with that is when they put that in.
But this is speculation, right? So this is speculation.
No, because they put that in her pleadings as a quote, as if it was recorded somewhere.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. I think they were hoping to settle it. They didn't expect the Exhibit A. They put that in there, and.
Well, they fucked up then, because they got a fight on their hands now.
That's why I say that. That's why they're in this deep shit, And but this is my personal theory. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but this is finally when things started making sense, and they didn't. And also, why did the whole cast side with Blake? Is because they knew that she had power. They saw it, and maybe some of them believed her, but they saw that they wanted to continue. And going back to my franchise, Colleen, I think she probably had plans to ask Colleen to write further books, just like Ryan Reynolds was writing new movies, and also Nick Shapiro, because there was a civil extortion, because otherwise it really doesn't make sense why they would hire an ex-CIA as opposed to not having like a crisis manager like Jed Wallace, because civil extortion has criminal charges.
It's based on criminal law, but it's not a crime. Civil extortion is not a crime. It's based on
in discovery, if they find it, can that lead to a criminal?
Oh, maybe, but they'd have to forward that to the DA, and it would be up to them to file criminal charges if they think that it amounts to criminal extortion. It can be a crime.
Yeah. And just thinking about how they sent 2 cease and desists to Brian Friedman. They tried to do the AEO, the gag order, how they were fighting, not like, just based on all of this. This was just something that made sense to me.
Yeah. By the way, Akoneta, thank you so much for the 10 with the heart. I appreciate you. I got to tell you that this theory it's not a bad one. I have to take off my lawyer hat to even entertain it, because like so much of this is not.
This is speculation.
Yeah, I couldn't just like rattle that off in a courtroom and just expect anything to happen. You know what I mean? Like, why this or that?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be like closing argument. But the way that it's going to come out in at trial is they're going to have a timeline of the text messages. They're going to have all these text messages, and probably in chronological order. And they're going to have to, just for the conspiracy portion of it, what was the plan? I think the plan was to take over the film. At some point, that became the plan. Whether that was the plan from the beginning or whether that became the plan some point after production, maybe when Ryan got jealous, that needs to be ferreted out. We need to come up with a theory of the case and stick with it. So if it was the case that was her intention all along, we need to find evidence that points to that. I'm not sure if they're going to find it. If it's a case where the jury thinks that Ryan Reynolds got jealous and started out of malice trying to go around erasing Justin Baldoni, that's not evidence of a conspiracy. It might be evidence of defamation, of malicious defamation, but it doesn't amount to conspiracy just yet. And so all of this speculation, what you've actually really done is plot the pathways of discovery and where we got to fill in the gaps. And we have to do it with tangible evidence. We can't do it with speculation. So you've done a lot of really good work, and you did it for free, and you uncovered a lot of things, and you were thinking like a juror, and you had a lot of questions that made a lot of sense. The only thing that's missing is you have to find the dark matter,
Yeah.
Like you see gravity moving things around. You have to find the actual source of the gravity. As I'm doodling on your PDF. Anyway, I didn't mean to do all that.
Thank you so much for reading it with me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for putting
time. I appreciate it. You didn't have to, but you still did it. Thank you.
Well, I only did it because I know it was a lot, and I was getting through all that stuff. And it kept on changing on me. Like it changed like a couple of times. But it was like you put in a lot of time and effort into it. That's why I felt the need to talk to it, because I think a lot of people are thinking like you, like, where's the conspiracy? Everybody wants Lively to be guilty of a conspiracy. Everybody wants to punish her because of what they perceive as happening to Justin, about how they tried to just erase him from the film and really to erase him from the industry. And everybody has these theories. And you've kind of headlined your theory and attached it to actual facts that are known. But I think it's important for people that are following this case to know that that's not where it stops. Those are really good theories. Now, how do we go about proving it? And going about proving it, you guys don't have the tools. I don't have the tools because I'm not a lawyer on the case to see what is in the discovery to put them all together. But that's what Friedman is attempting to do. And he's alluded to having more evidence. I don't know if we're ever going to get a chance to see all the evidence. Maybe if it goes to trial, but we'll see.
I hope so. After all this time the whole public has spent, we deserve a trial.
Yeah,
I know. They might not think the same, but we deserve a trial.
Imagine we get all the way to like the day before the trial and they say, oh, we've announced that we've made a settlement, terms undisclosed, everybody signed non-disclosure agreements. Wouldn't that be the anticlimactic way for this to end?
Oh, I think we would all be very pissed.
Oh, yeah, it'd be just a big waste of time. Well, I don't know if it's a waste
closure.
of time.
We need closure.
Yeah, you can't just bring us all the way up there to trial and then just like just take it away when we're on the eve of trial. Julianne 89 says it can become criminal following if JB et al. Prevail, I believe. Yeah, it's up to the DA. If they find criminal extortion from the facts of this case, then they 100% could pursue that. But it's up to them. They can't be forced to do anything. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Anita,
Okay. Oh,
thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Have a nice, well, it's evening for me. All right. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Folks, I may or may not be streaming later tonight about Karen Reed for the preparation leading up to her second trial. I've been working on that for a couple of days now. We'll see if I can get it out tonight. If not, I will have something for you tomorrow. Otherwise, I love you guys. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.